It's 8 o'clock on a Thursday night on the horn. That must mean this is Insinserious. Big show for tonight. A lot. We'll talk about the NBA Summer League. A little bit of the mid-season tournament is revealed how that's going to work. We will get into some MLB news. How about some NFL, some fantasy football, top shelf, bottom shelf, Insinserious news, and a whole lot more. But let's start off the show the same way we do every week by asking you, Anthony Whites, what's the best thing you saw this week?
I would have to say the UFC 290. It was overall a great package. Bo Nickal, who started off the main event, was phenomenal.
We will get into this a little bit later. I promise you. We'll talk some UFC in just a little bit.
You asked me the question.
I know, but I do. UFC 290, we watched it together, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. I will tell you the best thing I saw, Wembanyama, not a great start to Summer League, and then a really fun game to watch. Both of them, you saw the potential, especially defensively, that he could be really special this season, not to mention what going forward. But this season, he could be very good.
Let me ask you a question, though.
Yes.
He fell down a lot. Are you worried about that this season? Like every time,
no, he's going to get
falls
fouled.
down.
I was talking to Tyler Campbell about this earlier today, about Chet Holmgren, and he's falling down. A lot of these guys, when they teach him how to fall, especially big guys, it's more about learning how to fall the correct way. And you don't necessarily, when you're big and lanky like that, want to necessarily, completely, try and catch yourself and contour and move around, because it's real easy to strain something or hurt yourself that kind of way. So a lot of times it's like, no, just go to the ground. You don't weigh too much, so it's not going to be, it's like a huge fall every time. It gets harder when you're Joel Embiid and you keep falling and you keep. But for a guy like that, like when I played basketball, even I fell down all the time, and it's a part of, all right, if you fall and then you slide and everything, you learn how to take the fall. It doesn't really hurt that bad.
Sure, but I mean, you've got prime examples of like AD, who falls down, and every time it's.
But AD's a little bit different because AD has the history of injuries, but I do think it's not as big of a deal as people make it. I get it's cringeworthy. You'd want him to be able to have the control where they are able to run full speed down a court,
right?
Try and block a shot, and then stop in the 1.5 feet before the crowd. But you can't really do that instead of going over the top of the crowd, where for Wembanyama, that's at his knees. You sometimes just kind of go down with it, and it makes it a little bit easier to do. So it's not the end of the world to see guys go down that much. He is going to have to get used to, as much as he says there's not as much contact, you can tell one of the things he does really well, and it's going to take a few years to develop, but he really does the thing that Kevin Durant does very well, which is getting inside and drawing fouls by being long enough that, Tim Duncan used to be really good at it, of that bank shot, and he'd wait until you put your hand out, and then he'd come up real quick and he'd hit him across the elbow, and he used to do it all the time. Wembanyama is kind of like that. Durant is like that, where they're so long that they can show ball and then move the ball out further, and you're hitting them somewhere on their long arms, and then they go up and then hit the ground and saw that, and it's a foul. So you get 2 free throws. So you get kind of a shot. I think that there's but that to me is not the end of the world, falling down all the time. You want to have control, but you want to have control kind of in the open court. Those ones where they're falling down a lot, usually around the basket. And around the basket there's just so little room to navigate. There's usually a bunch of people over there. So, and also it's, if your weight, you're more likely to have an ankle injury at the 3-point line going up and someone undercutting you,
right,
and you putting all of your weight on your feet when you come down. So sometimes you just kind of roll out of it and hit the ground, and there's no party that's getting all of the body weight on top of it. But let's keep talking a little Summer League takeaways. Do you have any big takeaways from what you've seen from Summer League so far? A lot of the big names are starting to go home now. Summer League's continuing on, but a lot of Wemby got shut down. I believe we know Amin Thompson, he got actually injured in that game one. Scoot Henderson, I believe, has been shut down. So a lot of these guys are getting shut down now because they don't want them to get hurt anymore. They don't necessarily want to expose any more of them. And they want to see, this is now where we're getting to the part of Summer League of hey, let's see who we may give a shot to on a roster,
right,
who we want to have on our G League team that we maybe call up on a 2-way deal. Those kind of decisions are being made now, that you may not have all of those guys, or you may just be getting more reps for guys like Champagny for the Spurs. He may play more just because they're going to get him more reps, because they understand when going into this season, he's not going to get as much playing time as he got last season. Do you have any major takeaways from Summer League?
Honestly, not really. I'm not really that. I love watching it, but it's summer league. It's the competition isn't as great as you want it to be.
Yeah.
So, it's nice to see these potential players, but like what's the percentage that you're actually going to see in the NBA this year?
I mean, there's a decent amount. All the rookies you're going to see, none of them are going to play huge minutes. So you're not really seeing a ton of that. I mean, if you watch Detroit, that's when you're going to be able to see James Wiseman's on that. Detroit has a lot of it. Houston had a lot. Man, that's when Jabari Smith, he had a lackluster rookie season.
Right.
I think because there was a comparisons that maybe he'd go 1 and Paolo would go 3 or 2 and all of that. And Paolo Banchero just blew him out of the water in year 1, right?
Right.
And part of that's coaching. Part of that was that Steven Silas, and I don't think he's a bad assistant coach. I don't think he was ready to be a head coach. And especially not for a group of guys who didn't want to be coached. So I don't hold it against him as much as I think it was just a bad situation for pretty much everyone involved. But he did not stick out. And part of what was a big problem for him that you saw last year in Summer League, that you saw on the team last year, is he was not demanding the ball. And he was not the one trying to be the leader of the team. And he was kind of waiting for things to happen. And he's okay playing defense, so he wasn't that worried about it. But I think that we've seen now that he's trying to step up a little bit more. And he, of course, gets that big three-pointer in front of the packed house that he wins the game with the craziest ending right before the Wembanyama game where everybody's out there. So I've just been really impressed with him. I also love the fact that he doesn't mind playing the 5, and he would go in there and bump with Wiseman and bump with those guys, which is just really rare in today's game. So I thought for Houston, that's a huge thing to see him be like, oh, all right, this guy wants to play. He's chirping a lot. He's ready to go. I think you can expect a lot more out of him in his sophomore season. Chet Holmgren, it's been good to see him get in there and get some minutes after missing an entire year due to just kind of a freak injury on playing in a small gym. He was doing I believe Jamal Crawford is a guy who does like the charity games up in the Northwest. And it was just basically they were on this small court, and it was too many people into a gym, so there's condensation on the court. He ends up slipping a little bit, gets the injury on his foot. But to see him play, he's showing some of the flashes. Now, he's a year behind schedule, but he's showing flashes that, depending on how they work him into that OKC offense, he's going to contend with Wembanyama for Rookie of the Year because he is a year older, a year more of kind of, even though he wasn't on the court, just getting a little bit more knowledge of how the NBA works. He's been on the road. So I think there's parts of that where he's gonna have some good games this season. He's also playing on a team that does not seem to be in full let's go mode, even though you have Josh Giddey, you have SGA, who's an all-NBA player now. You have Chet Holmgren coming back. You've got a lot of good players on this team, and they still seem to be in pick collecting mode.
Seriously, like how much longer do you think it takes before them to actually finally?
I just don't know. I don't know what they're waiting for, because I get, like, this is the thing with Dame Lillard. We know he ain't going there. You could offer him 16 first-round picks.
Yeah.
He's not going there. So you can't hold out for, when this superstar comes available, because when the superstar comes available, most likely he's going to say, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
So even though it's not free agency, you can't wait for that too. You're going to have to start trading it for guys that maybe aren't the superstars and building around SGA, who was an all-NBA player last year. And go, okay, we have SGA. We're going to try and turn Chet Holmgren into a 1-2. Josh Giddey's a really good 3. So we have 3 guys that can be part of it. If we can stack a really good team around it and get a really good 4 and a really good 5, and not that position, but on the rank of who's getting the shots.
Well, so do you think that they're going to go the same route that the Spurs are and see what they have in Chet, and then
I think they don't know what they're doing. I think the Spurs have the benefit of not being like they're at the start of this. I think OKC's like 2 or 3 years past where they should have tried to start making moves.
Do you really think so? Like, I mean, I think that they might have. You look at.
I think this offseason they should have done something.
The Sixers, in their process, like OKC, nobody is really expecting anything from them. So why rush and try to make these moves when they don't know what they have in Chet?
No, I agree, but you do know what you have.
How?
And you don't know what you have in Chet Holmgren, but you know what you have in SGA. You know what you have in Josh Giddey.
Yeah, but he's still going to be...
Because you're going to have to pay Josh Giddey in a minute, and then you're paying SGA. You're going to have to pay him again. And so you're going to be paying everybody, and then then it's going to be like, well, we don't have to pay Holmgren yet, but we can't afford to bring anybody else because we don't want to go in the tax. And you're just going to kind of let it go until SGA wants out because you never built a team.
But see, I kind of disagree. I think they are building a team, and they have the picks. So now that they can start, once they see what they have in Chet, now they can start dispersing these picks to the NBA and getting these, they don't have to get another superstar, just these mid players to build out their team.
And get some veterans in there. I mean, I get what you're saying. I just don't get why you're going to try and wait another offseason to add anything to it. Like, you're just bringing back Holmgren again. And you've got the two Jalen Williams who are playing well. Like, you've got so many pieces that you're eventually going to get to the point of, well, we have more pieces than we can play.
And isn't that a good thing? Because now you can trade those out.
No, because you can, but are you going to? And
so,
that's my
this?
point. Is I think that I think this offseason they should have walked in with a plan of like, all right, Chet's coming in. This is what we're going to do. We've got all this talent. Let's go try and be players in this. Let's go see. Maybe let's go talk to the Celtics and see if we can make a deal for Jaylen Brown. Let's go talk to some of these other teams and see let's go talk to the Clippers and see what's happening with some of their star players. Let's go talk. Let's talk to some of these teams. And even if it's like, hey, let's go talk about Tobias Harris and we can go get him pretty cheap. And he adds another veteran into this lineup. There's guys out there that you can try and go after. And if you want to go to Utah and say, y'all want more picks, we'll give you more picks and let us try and get Lauri Markkanen or Jordan Clarkson or somebody like that. I think there's guys that you can go after. Cleveland needs help. They gave away a lot of their depth. Maybe take one of go get a Jared Allen or somebody like that. And I think there's guys you could try and go get.
Well, so how about this? Maybe not wait till next summer, but mid-season.
If you're doing well enough mid-season, and you should be around a play-in team right now.
Right.
I would say if you wait till, and I get to you want to see if you're healthy and how it goes.
Yeah.
I just think that the waiting thing, it is like the Philadelphia 76ers, which waited forever to finally get to where they got last year, and then they got knocked out by the 8th seed, and now it's already fallen apart again because James Harden wants out.
Right.
So I get it. You can trust the process, but 10 years to get knocked out by the 8th seed.
I get it.
I get it. You won MVP, but you're not really competing. So the trust the process doesn't work because there's no titles under that. And if you want to win titles, you're like, hey man, we got to eventually get aggressive. The Spurs may have the same problem in a year because next offseason they need to be aggressive.
Right.
And if they're not going to be, and they're going to wait another year and let's add another piece, let's not figure out what we're going to do with Sohan and Keldon Johnson. That's where the problems start to lie. If you go, yeah, no, guys, you got to be aggressive. You got to go for it at a certain point. And this is something I keep hearing, listening to different shows and podcasts. Everyone's like, oh, Sohan's going to come off the bench, and that's fine. That's great. I know we had Manu. The difference was Manu was the third best player on that team. He was the best shooting guard we ever had on the team, on all those teams. Michael Finley was good, but he's playing like he back up Danny Green. Danny Green's good. He's not Manu Ginobili. He back up Brent Berry. Brent Berry's good. He's not Manu Ginobili. Jeremy Sohan would be backing up Victor Wembanyama. So he's backing up your best player. So at the end of the day, you can't just go, oh, he'll come off the bench, because the reality is he needs to play 30-plus minutes a game. And where does that fit? And how do you play 30-plus minutes a game with Devin Vassell, with Keldon Johnson, with Wembanyama, and with Sohan? They all need to be playing 30-plus minutes a game. So if we're saying all those guys need to be able to play on the court together, that for me is the biggest question going into this season. Can those four guys fit on the court together and play plus basketball? Play against good teams, defend everybody, and score. If those four guys can, okay, you're ahead of the game now.
Didn't Sohan come off the bench last year?
No, he started most of the season.
Mm.
And again, though, but it didn't matter because if he's coming off the bench, he still can play 30 minutes a game.
Mm.
And he was a rookie last year, so he played a little less. But if we're saying he is part of this rebuild, he is part of what you want to go for.
Yeah.
I know I have my doubts about him,
Yeah, you do.
but let's just look at this as how the Spurs are viewing it. So if we're going to say that this is how they're viewing it, it's not a question of, well, who comes off the bench and who starts. It's can those four guys. Your four core pieces right now. And
right.
Trey Jones is back. Trey Jones is playing point guard. He kind of falls into an easy area because he's going to be the point guard, and he may get replaced next year too, or in 2 years. It's only a 2-year deal. I think point guard kind of falls out of this. But we're talking 2 through 5.
Yeah.
Vassell, they're super high on. He's shown that he can do a lot of things, so Devin Vassell is going to be on that lineup. Keldon Johnson, they know we're super high on. That's their guy. Jeremy Sohan, they're really high on. And, of course, Victor Wembanyama. So those four guys have to be able to court together with the point guard. can those 4 guys coexist? And if that lineup works, then the Spurs are very much further ahead than they could be if Keldon Johnson doesn't work in that lineup. All right, now you got to find another suitor for Keldon Johnson. If Sochan doesn't work, even if he's really playing really good in other moments, you can't keep him on your team when you realize we got to sell while his value's high before we make him a bench player, not a 6-man, a bench player, because he's going to play 18 minutes a game, 19 minutes a game, and that's not enough for him to be happy and not enough for us to use him usefully. So we need to trade him off and try and get a regular 5 for him or something like that. That's my biggest thing going into this season. I will say we did get the report. I am excited. There's someone on a different edge. Serge Ibaka-Rice is supposed to play on Friday in the Spurs' last regular Summer League game. Then there's Summer League playoffs. Serge Ibaka-Rice, it was reported today, the reason he hasn't been playing was because they did test on him, and his medical tests were that he was really low on iron. And so
this isn't the guy with the rare brain?
No. Okay. Serge Ibaka-Rice played for Texas last year.
Okay, gotcha.
So they did the test on him. They found he was low on iron. They were just keeping him out while they got that sorted out. He's now passed all his tests. Everybody's happy. So they're he should be playing on Friday now. So it'll be a good shot for any Spurs fans or Texas fans to see the guy they signed to a 2-way deal out of the draft. He wasn't drafted, but they signed right after. So I'm looking forward to that. I will also mention Scoot Henderson. Looks like he's going to make an impact both
Good
into
guy.
the court.
But so let me ask you that. So you see that, and I know that we both kind of agreed that it's wise for Portland to be patient with the trade with Dame.
Yeah.
But how patient is too patient when you want to start branding your team around
I think for
Scoot?
the day one, I don't mind at all putting Dame and Scoot together. Do not mind one bit putting them together to start the season.
They're the same people.
I get no, but they're not.
They got the same build. They're the same position.
They're similar people. Scoot Henderson plays more of a 2. Dame plays a 1. They both like to score. You can have 2 scorers on a team.
That was C.J. McCollum problem.
The C.J. McCollum problem is that he never progressed. C.J. McCollum never progressed to an All-NBA level. And they needed 2 All-NBA players, what they felt, because they didn't have anybody else who was even close to that. C.J. McCollum was a borderline All-Star. And they weren't an All-NBA player. So I get that, but that's the reason, and it didn't flow as well. He also wasn't going to play, I don't think, at the level defensively that Scoot Henderson can do.
Right.
I think Scoot Henderson blows Dame and CJ out of the water defensively right now, and that's where you're going to use any of these rookies, or their rookie season, is on defense. You're going to use the crap out of them on defense and go, hey, man, you guys are young and hungry. Go run around and just try and steal passes. But I would do it. I don't think it'll happen. I think he'll get traded before Dame will get traded before the start of the season.
I will agree with you. I would love to see that backcourt.
But I'd love to see it because
I think Dame would love it too once he started playing with them. And
that's what I'm saying is I think there could be something of, hey, let's do this to show every other team that we're not bluffing, that we will keep him.
Right.
That Dame has to either say I'm not showing up, and y'all can dock my pay and whatever else. I'm not showing up. I mean, I think that you do that, and if he comes and plays and it works, and they're the 2 seed in the West, is he still going to ask for the trade?
No.
Or does he say, oh, no, let's see where this goes. Let's try and make another trade to bring somebody else in, and let's go try and run it here at Portland. I think that makes more sense than taking a bad trade. Now, if someone comes with you, and Dame agrees to it, and you get 4 picks and 2 players, which what you asked for, God bless you. But I don't see anyone doing that. Because that was what apparently Portland's asking for, is 4 picks and 2, so basically 4 first-rounders, or at least pick swaps or something, and 2 quality young players, which I don't even know who has 2 quality young players to give to you. That's a competitive team, and still competitive if they give you those 2 quality young players. Like, because you're asking for Maxey, who's the other player? Are you asking for Maxey and Harden? Yeah. Like, who's the other young? Are you asking for Maxey and Toby?
Well, no. Well, but that's why I keep going back. It has to be a 3-team trade in order for it to work right now.
It has to be a 4-team trade or a 5-team trade. Like it just has to be a lot for it to work. Yeah. And I just don't know if it's going to. But I'm excited to watch a lot of these rookies next season. I'm counting Chet Holmgren as a rookie. Brandon Miller, I think he's going to get there, but I don't know if it's going to be this season.
Let me ask you this. Is this going to go down as one? Not obviously, there's been greater passes, but is this going to go up like one of the top as Charlotte passes on Scoot and gets Brandon Miller?
No, I don't think so, because I think Brandon Miller will have a long career. I think that he's just right now not performing at the level he needs to. But the question will be is, does the new ownership get him the help he needs? And, be able to get him the coaching and everything else to get him to evolve and player develop. It's way too early to say that Brandon Miller is going to be a flop. It's Summer League. A lot of these guys are missing shots. I'm not as worried about Brandon Miller as some other people are, but it is – I think you're going to have to build up his confidence, and that's going to be the big part for Charlotte is can you build up his confidence so that he is at least the best defender in this class?
Yeah.
Or at least starting. Because right now, people are saying that the Thompson twins are going to be better than him. So if you're now saying, well, he's 6 or 7, now they're not saying he's busting out. They're not saying it's going to be – and, I mean, you can still say Greg Oden was taken before Kevin Durant.
Right.
Anthony Bennett was number 1 overall. There's been way worse picks than this.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Darko.
But Darko, exactly. I don't think it's going to be that for Brandon Miller. It's one of the worst things if you're Charlotte because you did pass on Scoot Henderson. You didn't trade the pick where you could have gotten a Zion Williamson probably.
Right.
Or did something like that where you could have had at least a little bit more, incentive to be happy going into next season. Now you're like, well, I guess Michael sold the team, so that's good. That's basically what you're going with. LaMelo will be back.
Yeah.
And, that's another thing. Brandon Miller's going to be able to play with one of the best creators in the league in LaMelo Ball. So he'll be able to – I think things will get better, but it's going to be a project. It's going to take some time. And, luckily they already signed LaMelo, but this may be hey, we kind of got to get rid of everybody else on this roster and reset with LaMelo and Brandon Miller and reset everything and maybe tank again or, really work on it to not be,
Yeah, and that's fair. That roster's not that great anyways.
Then we got to get rid of Gordon Hayward, man. Come on, man. This dude's been on the team forever. Yeah. Send him over to OKC. They need a veteran.
Sure.
Let's talk a little. Actually, a midseason tournament was announced. We'll go on this briefly. Does it do anything for you?
No, you kind of ruined it.
How did I ruin it?
Because you just logic.
just being like, why as a fan?
Yeah, they didn't really explain it well enough to make me excited anymore. I was like, oh.
Yeah, no, and I get they're like, well, the players are going to make this money, and you're like, the bad players care. The players, but does LeBron care?
No.
Do teams that are going to compete for championships with guys that are making $40 million a year, are they like, ooh, $500,000?
Right, yeah.
I don't think they care as much. So it's a lot of money. It's cool, but I think it's going to be the battle of smaller and younger teams. And depending on how many of these games are on national television, where you can actually watch all these games and keep up with it, I think a lot of these games are not even going to be on national television.
See, if they do that, that's a terrible move.
But it's what, 6 games between 30 teams? They're not all going to be on national television.
That's fair. But at least like the semifinals and
the semifinals and finals will be. Yeah. But who cares if it's Charlotte versus the Spurs? I don't think that's a game that anybody's going to be like, wow, we got to watch this. It's like, oh, there's 2 young teams. Cool. Okay, season this. Those are the teams that I think will be in
but
that.
Also, these are 2 young teams that aren't normally nationally televised, so you get to see them.
But that's not drawing in the eyes they want to draw.
I'm trying here. That's all I'm saying.
I get it. I think you need to add an incentive for fans, and I think the incentive for fans and for owners, governors, is I think you should put a pick into it or a trade exception. I think something of that extent where they go, I don't know, you can make a trade exception. So teams now that are winning and going for the title go, we need that. Oh, they're going to give us, pick 33 in the draft or whatever. That's in their first round. Or, however we make it work, or pick 16 right out of the lottery.
Yeah.
That pick, that now, and fans are tuning in because you're like, I want that pick. Because now if you're a good team, we can trade that pick. And if you're a bad team, you're like, we get another pick. I think something like that would incentivize teams to care more.
Sure, yeah.
And if your owner cares, then you're going to try and play your players and not have load management. There's only one team that I really think load management is controlled by the team, by the players, not the team. And that's the Clippers. Kawhi and Paul George tell the team when they don't play. Everybody else, the teams are kind of on board with load management.
Right.
But if you said, hey, take load management not on those days because we want that pick, I think the Lakers would be very big for getting another pick. Like the Lakers would be like, we get a pick back?
Yeah, I agree.
And when you talk about the Stepien rule, oh, man, if you give us a 2025 and we've already traded our 2024 and our 2026, we have already traded, we can now trade the 2 picks out of that are our picks I think there's just reasons that would make it for me a little bit more interesting.
I back that up fully.
All-Star game this weekend. Home run derby, tons of fun.
Love it. That's my favorite event.
I would say I would change one format to it. And we talked about this on Ball Don't Lie. I would change the format to be the timed round in the first round and the second round be by outs. So you could watch some of these massive home run hitters. You could actually watch because there was a part where you lose it of a guy hits a ball 470 yards. And by the time you realize it's 470 feet, then they're already
on to like
it's already 5 home
sure,
runs, 5 shots later. So I think that if you added both elements in, it could make it more interesting. Plus, if you did the finals that way, or if you just went to the finals that way, you could do 5 outs for one guy and then have the other guy come up and do 5 outs, so there was a little bit more suspense in it.
Okay.
So I think that would be a cool thing to look into. But I did like it. The home run, the actual. What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say if my take, if I would change anything, is the first round, because they do the 1v1. The person who wins their 1v1 with the lowest amount of home runs, has to go against the person who lost their 1v1 who had the highest.
So
home
you
runs.
change seating.
Yeah, well, just that too. That whoever,
okay.
So they,
so it's not a straight format, but it's. I got you.
Yeah,
because
I can't remember the guy's name, but the switch hitter that lost to
Rauschman, I believe his name is.
It's he should have been in the second round. He was entertaining as all get.
Yeah, he was very entertaining, and he was from Seattle area.
So
he was like
better.
the second fan favorite.
Yeah.
Also, let's go into and the actual game. Not super interesting.
It's so boring.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
It would be more interesting, but the pitching was really good.
It's been like that for years now.
So,
yeah.
Also, Shohei Ohtani. The Angels, Mike Trout is now out 4 to 8 weeks. We know that the Angels are 4th in the division now, falling further out of it.
How many games do they have to fall back before you think they make the trade?
I think the question is, do they think they can keep him after the season? And that's the only thing keeping him. Is do you really think you can keep him after the season? I don't think they could. Maybe they know something we don't. The trade offer you get for him could be epic, especially if it's somebody like the Dodgers or Yankees who think that they could sign him long term. But I think the Rangers or the Braves could make a trade just for a rental.
Right.
And it makes either one of them the team to beat. But that's something very much to watch for. I'd also want to make this trade as soon as possible, especially if the Yankees are going to try and do it. You're like, man, we are 8 games out of the division lead right now. We're 4th in our division. Dude, he's pitching on Friday. Like, don't let him pitch. We need his starts.
Wow, you was that quick.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, you're talking about 15, 16 games. You're 8 games out. You need every game you can get at this point if you're the Yankees. So if I'm the Yankees, I want him immediately. But that means you have to give up more. I think some of these teams, especially the teams that want him for a rental, are really waiting for it to play out so they can go, oh, that's all they're offering? And that's where a team like the Rangers could be in play because they do have a lot of young talent. But if you're the Rangers and you know you're not going to try and re-sign him at the end of the season, how much young talent do you actually want to give up for trying to win one title? And anything could derail it, like an injury or anything. And all of that is just takes you out for years in advance. So that's something to watch for. Let's go to the break. When we come back, we will hit on some fantasy football, a little bit of NFL, top shelf, bottom shelf, and a little bit later some Insinserious news. All that and more coming up on the Horn 104.9, 101.9, and AM 1260. Back on Insinserious on 104.9 The Horn. Some MC Overload for you. Ovi Fest coming to the Rail House in Kyle, August 13th. It's going to be an all-day fun event we're going to be doing out there, celebrating the life and legacy of MC Overlord. So check that out. All the information we'll post up on our social medias.
I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be a lot of fun. But I just posted the music video up for this as well.
Nice.
But let's talk a little NFL. First and foremost, they have finally announced the thing that we all figured, that the New York Jets will be the team featured on Hard Knocks. Are you excited about Hard Knocks with the New York Jets?
Other than the Rodgers part of it, absolutely.
You don't want to see the Aaron Rodgers.
I don't care about Aaron Rodgers. But, I love to see – I know the drama, but Robert Saleh, that defense is going to be phenomenal. I want to see how the young guys build that offensive team. So, yes, I mean, you're going to have Rodgers in there, but, yeah.
But don't you want to see him be upset that he's in it while he keeps trying to be in it?
Do the voice.
Why, do I have an Aaron Rodgers voice?
Yeah, it's terrible.
I don't remember if I have an Aaron Rodgers voice. I'm sure I've done it. I don't remember it, though. Right. I can't really picture his voice.
He's going to be annoyed. He's going to do the Aaron Rodgers thing.
He is going to do the Aaron Rodgers thing.
He's going to be the prima donna stuff. But I'd rather see, what the Breece Hall and, Garrett Wilson and how that defense just keeps ramping up.
I will say I will be disappointed if Sauce Gardner does not do the tributes to, was it Cromartie? Who was the Jets player who tried to name all his kids and couldn't name them all? Was that who it was?
I didn't know.
I remember there's an old Hard Knocks thing where it was one of the Jets players, and he's like naming off. He's like, I got my kids, and he's trying to name them all off, but he can't.
It's still terrible.
But he's got like 12 of them or something.
At least it's 12, and it's not like 3.
No, it's not like Tommy, Bob.
Or he starts naming wrong gigs that people don't know he has.
Yeah. So that is. Look, I think it was the only reasonable choice to do. Yeah. Breece Hall is going to be there's a lot of young players on that team, and I have a feeling that the Jets management and coaching and everybody's going to be like, guys, we don't want him here, so just ignore him, and they're going to try and throw him the guys they know won't make the team and be like, cover them.
Yeah.
And then all the young guys are going to be like, but I want to be on TV. I want to. So it should be fun to see how much they actually get into it. And how cool Robert Saleh can keep it. He seems like a guy who can keep his cool.
I think so.
But I figure we're going to see something where he loses it a little bit, and it'll be hilarious. So that'll be fun. Also, let's do some fantasy football talk as we get closer to fantasy football season and drafts and what people need to know. It's your favorite time. It's my favorite time until roughly 3 rounds into the draft.
3? That's way too late. You're before the draft. You're already...
Before my pick?
Yeah.
Oh, my pick. Out. Oh, jeez. That's all who's available. It's like you have the number 1 pick. I know. There's no one good left.
Seriously. All right. So this is a little stat that I found about running backs. So in the past 10 years, running backs who have had a minimum of 7 carries and 70-plus targets, there was 57 of them. Of those 57, 100% of them finished in the top 24. 46 finished in the top 12, and 26 finished in the top 5. So when you're going into the draft, you want to find at least one of those players. Now, there's not a whole lot of them, but there are kind of peppered in the very front, the middle, and the back. And these are the players that are projected to have at least a minimum of 7 carries and 70 targets this year. Obviously, it's Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler. Those are the givens. But then you have the Ramondre Stevenson, the one that is, depending on your league, is going to either go too high or you're going to get a steal with him because it's just a hard name to really sink your teeth in as being your number 1 pick.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to get excited about.
But it's going to be his backfield. He's going to be able to do his own thing. So that's one if you can get him late. But then there's Breece Hall, Aaron Jones. The obvious is Joe Mixon, Saquon Barkley. But then you get into the
and Saquon falls into he hasn't signed his.
So and that's kind of helpful that if he doesn't sign, you're going to get him probably a little later, depending on again your league. But then you get the DeAndre Swift. This guy had all this talent. Didn't really show it in Detroit. He had Jamal Williams just kind of stealing everything.
Of all vultures.
Of all vultures. Now the Eagles have a very deep lineup with running back, so it's going to be kind of a hard to get there. But he has the potential to get there. And then lastly, my favorite, which has been my favorite, and I just but he just can't do it. Antonio Gibson. When he was with the he still is with the Commanders.
So,
I think this year he's going to have a breakout, and you're going to get him late in the rounds.
Well, because he's running back 3, 2, 3.
No,
there?
he's running back 2, and I mean the Robinson's going to be your straight.
I
Gibson's
mean,
gonna be
we're
your pass
figuring
catcher.
he's not going to get shot this offseason.
I think he might just so he can have
Gibson's
just
gonna
that
be
great game. Yeah, but I love Gibson in the late rounds, and then there's one running back that I will probably draft more than I want to because I've never really cared for him, but the position or the situation that he's in is just too perfect. It's James Conner. James Conner has been a top 10 running back in fantasy points per game in 3 of the last 4 years, which is insane. I don't ever think of him like that. And then he has 0 competition, and he's still going at RB 28. So right out of that top 24. And so if you can get him, I know, the whole Kyler Murray, but Kyler Murray's still going to be there. They're still going to score points. They're still going to be playing football. And so
they are still going to be playing football.
Yeah,
that is true.
And so I see James Conner as one of those. He could, if you pair him right with the right players, could easily win you a championship. So those are my
if you
my
get him in the
stats.
right spot. You
Yeah,
get all that
late
stuff.
round. Yeah,
I am curious about a couple teams' running back situations. The Falcons is interesting because you're wondering, all 3 of those guys seem like guys, and Patterson and Algiers and Robinson, all 3 seem like they should put up points.
right.
But it's hard to go, no, I want to take, RB3 on a league, but that's one where I just kind of all 3 seem like they're going to do well this year.
Same with the Dolphins.
And especially that coach loves to run the ball. And then the Bears, I don't know if any
Oh yeah, because you got Khalil, you got Foreman, you got Roshan.
Yeah.
So
there's 3 guys in there that all seem like they're around the same level, and Herbert's had shined at points, and we know Foreman shined at points last year, and Roshan shined here at Texas, but we don't know what he's going to be in the NFL. But all those guys seem like they should be okay, but we don't know who's going to get the carries. So it's like that one. I don't know where to draft any of those guys.
what about with the news with the Saints? How many games do you think Kamara gets suspended?
Now that he pled guilty, right? Probably 4 games. I mean, they may go hard on him because it's the Saints, and they know they can get away with going hard on him.
I think they go 6.
Which
I'm glad that this is all coming out now, so you can kind of have that expectation. He's going to be out 6, so he's going to drop pretty far down there, but he's still Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
And then Jamal Williams kind of creeps up there.
Is he going to be like this year's DeAndre Hopkins kind of thing, where he's going to fall in certain leagues different levels, and you're just like, oh no, when he comes out, we know he's coming back, and it's not an injury.
DeAndre Hopkins is going to be the DeAndre Hopkins of this year.
Well, no, because he was suspended to start the season.
No, I know,
year.
but
depending on where he goes,
like
if he goes to Kansas City, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be just fine.
Sure.
But no, I get what you're saying. But I meant of a guy who was suspended, not hurt. So you know he's missing X amount of games and then is coming back full force. Kamara to me is a guy that you go, he's that guy that you have to suffer for a few weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
But very well worth the pick because of know how good he is, and he's just going to be that much better because he's going to be upset and because he's going to be, healthier.
And I wouldn't even be mad at you if you drafted Jamal Williams and Alvin Kamara on the draft just to have those 1-2 for the season. Because when Kamara comes back, Williams is going to be that goal line running back.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, he's shown that he can do it in epic form.
Exactly.
Let's do a little top shelf, bottom shelf. Every week we do top shelf, bottom shelf, where Anthony will read off the stories we did not have time to get to in the rest of the show. And we will tell you if they are grade A top shelf Wembanyama game 2 or that bottom shelf Wembanyama game 1. I know he had 5 blocks. I'm being hyperbolic. But yes.
Ooh, that was a big word for you. That was nice.
I do it a lot. I live in a lot of hyperbole. If you want to join the conversation, 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line. 512-337-3776 to join the conversation with us. Anthony, what do you got for us first?
Let's start with the best news ever. LeBron says he's not retiring.
LeBron needs to learn how to read a room. And I get he got an applause, but that dude, I like him so much. He's such a good basketball player.
Okay.
He's a really good guy. Does a lot for the community.
Okay.
He's just everything you like about that. And I prefer that he doesn't demand trades. He just signs short-term deals and leaves. How free agency was built to work. I have all of that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But he did the decision. and comes off, and he's like, tries to do everything right. It just comes off awful. And then this is like, guys, that day is not today. Oh, just be like, yeah, I'm coming back. Yay. Do it with a happy face. Darvin Ham seemed happy at Summer League after that news. Darvin Ham said the biggest piece in my portfolio is still there. I just every time, and I know he gets applause for saying it, but it was everyone just went, oh, it's just that cringy stuff he does.
I got to be honest with you. I forgot that that was even an option. I thought
it was never.
I know,
look,
that's what I mean.
When Michael Malone's walking around like, I'm the Lakers' daddy, I don't think he just goes, you're right. You're right, guys. Hang it up. Michael Malone wins the GOAT conversation. He won one championship in Denver.
Yeah.
So
is that bottom shelf for you then?
It's bottom shelf of how he did it. Also, he did on the ESPYs. Who cares about the ESPYs?
That's fair. UFC 290.
Yeah, let's talk about it now.
Okay, so I will say, like, the main events, the championship fights were a little bit disappointing. Yair had that match won. It was one moment, and I believe this wholeheartedly, where he was starting to dominate, and then he paused and he smiled. And if you know his opponent, no, and it was instant.
Yeah,
instant. And the same with Brandon Moreno. I really don't know what his game plan was against the guy,
Pantera guy.
I know that's all I want to say is Pantera. But it wasn't. He didn't come off very strong. He didn't come off. He came timid, and he deserved to lose. So the whole Mexican Revolution is kind of taking a big backstage.
Wasn't that other dude? I think I read a thing that he was still delivering like Postmates up until he won this fight.
Possibly. I mean,
that dude, and then he's like, all right, this is not going to fit. I'm going to carry the belt around with the food. Nah, we'll leave it now.
Dan Herker, who won, he won with a broken wrist and there was a fracture somewhere in his face the entire fight. I don't understand how they do it.
No, I don't get it. I will say one of my favorite things from this, which I hadn't heard a lot before, was translators in the corners. The translator in the corner guy was the best because you just hear a guy yelling in another language, very impassioned, and then a translator being like, you're going to have to watch out for his left hook. He's throwing the left hook at you a lot. He's hitting you in the face. You're getting hit a lot. And it's just like this rough translation of the guy really letting him, you got to do this. And then you have to do this.
I will say the bummer was Israel coming out there and just I didn't see it live. You saw it. I watched it afterwards, and just uncomfortable. And still afterwards was just like confident, like, yep, meant everything I said. It was fact.
This is, when people get mad at professional wrestling for trying to make things prescripted and
prescripted.
Just scripted.
I think you said prescripted.
No, just
go
scripted.
Back to the tape.
But things, look, there's a reason. It's because that's what happens when you let prime athletes think that they know what they're going to say. As someone who's talked on a live microphone a lot in my life, there was a point where I was like, I can walk on any microphone and just knock it out. And then you realize that is not the case always, because you walk on and you be like, all right, this is what I'm going to say. And 2 words in, you're like, I forgot everything I'm about to say. And it seemed what happened to Stylebender, except he was like,
he just replaced all those words with one word.
I'm going to start with the N-word, and then I'm going to go here. And then he's like, all right, just keep saying the N-word until you figure out where you're going to go with it. And then he tried to make a 23andMe joke.
Missed it so bad.
And he missed it twice.
What did he say, 26?
Yeah, because he said like 26 and 28, I think. But
maybe it was a dig against 23.
No.
I know.
What it was he went the joke, and then no one bid on it. And I think he was like, I think they missed that joke. Guys, I'm going to
give you a higher number.
You know when you're at a party and you tell a joke and no one laughs and you're like, oh, no, but that was a winner. And you say it again and everybody just turns and go, we heard. Like, oh, that feeling, that shiver down your spine. That happened to him. And then he just said the N-word 5 more times. To a South African where all of it seemed terrible. It was just one of those very uncomfortable things.
Yeah, I'm glad I missed it live.
It was not fun to watch, especially because I like Style. Like, he's such a good fighter.
Right.
And you see that and you're like, oh, Joe, take the mic away, Joe. Let Joe run away, Joe.
He has some awkward tendencies in him, but he can whip his butt.
Let's do another one.
This one I haven't heard. Bob Huggins says he didn't resign.
So Bob Huggins, if you don't know, Bob Huggins, West Virginia basketball coach, gets in trouble saying a slur on a show talking about another team's fan base. He says the slur multiple times. So they suspend him, and they change his contract to a yearly contract. They say every year we're going to have to renew. Like, we're going to have to look at this every year now because you're not winning, you're not recruiting great, and you just said a word we're not supposed to say anymore.
But, all right.
It wasn't racist. It was homophobic.
Oh.
So
problematic.
Problematic. So he says that, and they're like, you can't be like a D1 Power 5 school head coach. You can do this at D2. D2, they'll be like, hey, sensitivity training, but we offer a 3-day class. So you can do it D2. D1 Power 5, you can't do that. Then he follows this up by getting a DUI. Again, these are things that you can do both of these and survive, but you can't do them together.
Right.
You can't be on suspension for saying a slur and then get a DUI at a Power 5 Division I school and keep your job. So this all happens. He sees the writing on the wall, and I guess he says, all right. And then they send in a resignation, which then they said came from his wife's phone. She texted in a resignation, I guess. And then I guess his lawyer calls him and goes, hey, you didn't just resign, right? No. We can get money out of them still. Like, this is millions of dollars you're leaving on the table because if they have to fire you, we can still get money out of them.
Right.
And so now he said that he didn't resign. He demands to be reinstated. And they're like, no, dude. Dude, no. Like, read the room. No. So
there's got to be some backing to it, right?
There's going to be a lawsuit between the two. But no, Bob Huggins was already kind of at the end. He's very well respected. He's a great coach. But it's one of those things of we are now in the generation of NIL, and we're in the generation of the transfer portal. And certain coaches either have to adapt or you're gone. And I don't know if he ever fully adapted to it. And that's part of it. Is like, dude, you can keep a job, but you're still working at a place of higher education.
Yeah.
In a world that this is what it is, you don't have to believe any of this. Mike Gundy doesn't believe in any of this at Oklahoma State.
For sure.
He has a 5-year contract that extends itself at the end of every year. So it's always a 5-year contract. It's an automatically renewing 5-year contract. That dude does not believe in anything. He is the most far-right conservative guy you're going to find in coaching. He's also still getting hurt because he is not doing the NIL and transfer portal very well. But he's winning enough games because he's a really good coach, and he's playing enough ball to not mess up outside of the world because he knows, all right, that leash is kind of thin. I've also got a contract that is, a $25 million buyout, so I'm pretty good.
Yeah. Bob
Huggins doesn't have any of that. It's basketball, not football. He'll land on his feet. He's going to go to a D2 school for a while and come back. But, yeah, Bob Huggins not a bad guy, but this is a bad look, Bob. Bad luck. Let's do one more, and then we're going to go to break.
All right. New NBA rules pass.
Top shelf.
Yes.
It's not going to be enforced. They'll never call challenges right, and flopping is the hardest thing to call. But I love that you're trying to make a difference. I bet these rules last a year. And then the challenges one, though, is if you got to challenge this right, you have to do that.
Yeah.
I believe you still get charged for the timeout of the second one, though, no matter what. But whatever it is, that need to be a rule. You need to change the challenge thing to be a more impartial judge.
Do you think the flopping rule is going to take a lot of the game away?
No, I don't. I don't think it's going to do anything. I don't think they're going to enforce it hardly at all. They have a flopping thing in college, and they barely enforce it. So I don't think it's going to do much of anything, quite frankly. But you need to do something, and that's hopefully what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll hit some Insinserious news right here on the Horn, 104.9, 101.9, AM 1260, live, local, and digital on hornfm.com, and they stream it in the Horn app, and also check out our YouTube and other things that are happening. Back at Insinserious here on the Horn, a little bit more MC Overlord. Ovi Fest happening Sunday, August 13th at the Rail House Bar in Kyle. Now, come on now. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's been some awesome stuff. There's a whole jam plan that's going to be really awesome. Some of the best MCs in town, singers. It's going to be a ton of fun happening this Sunday, August 13th at Rail House Bar in Kyle, outdoor venue. Hopefully it will not be 120 degrees outside, but it is going to be a lot of fun out there. So please come join us. We got just a few minutes left, so it's time for some Insinserious news. Anthony, are you ready?
I'm ready.
A Burger King in Thailand is getting very popular because they have brought up the real cheeseburger. The real cheeseburger. It is a two slices of bread, 2 buns, and 20 slices of cheese, no meat. 20 slices of cheese. This sounds disgusting.
It does, even
because
though
it's not even good cheese.
Yeah.
Like there's slices, you can tell where the slice. Like I don't want my cheese to be that separated but congealed. Yeah, it's just a gross look.
Yeah.
What's your special burger for a fast food chain to make?
I just want Wendy's to bring back the Wendy mushroom bacon melt. I miss that thing so much.
Mushrooms.
It's the best thing in the world.
Oh.
Do it, Wendy's. Do it for me.
do it for Anthony. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I need a just like I always love a queso burger, but they're the messiest burger to eat.
Yeah.
They're so delicious. But I do the Southwest Texas burger, would you just put basically you put nachos on a burger. That's it's who I am as a person.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Our next story: police are searching for a screaming woman. They find a parrot. They thought that people were saying, "Oh my God, this woman seems to be in distress," and they pull up to a guy's house and they realize it is just a parrot being very loud. Have you ever felt like a fool for being scared?
Every time. You're talking to a guy who hides behind pillows at watching movies, shows, who yells out loud when he's coming to a corner, makes himself known.
Yeah, I had the one yesterday or the other night where I was in my room and I hear something outside. I was like, is there a dog barking like right outside my window? Like, is there a dog barking? And then the door opens. And I'm like, oh, my roommate walks in and he sneezes. I was like, oh, it's my roommate sneezing outside. That's what it was.
Nice.
It's like, oh, do I need to go check? Like, this sounds like an old dog barking. We got to get out of here. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week with more. Until we're not here, we will still be here on 104.9. We'll see you next week. Peace.